Well, welcome back, everybody. So we are on lesson 16, the birth of ego consciousness. And so right away, we come out of this chapter and it's like, holy cow. So in the third paragraph, it dives right in and starts off with really almost what I consider to be a bombshell and just starts off and says, you are God itself. And for some people, that can be like, holy cow, did he just really say that? And it's like, yes, he did. And I think it's absolutely beautiful and loving, but that may take a little bit of time for you to process that, and that's totally understandable and okay. It's kind of like kerplunk, 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 earlier in the book where he's dropping the pebbles, kerplunk, 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 right? And that's different, definitely it. And then what happens is in the next chapters of the book, he starts to go through the process of explaining the different levels of creation. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that because it's a lot of reading. But I think there's some little things in here that I think are great little nuggets, if you will. In the first in the paragraph that starts off with, in pure spirit, you're unbounded and you are without form, but you are not without consciousness. So, in other words, this consciousness thing prior to us coming into this body, and then after we leave this body, we are always consciousness. We are always part. There is this individual, this unique expression of the divine, if you will. Um, and then later on, it says, it starts talking about this. I love this when he starts talking about, but even in the following paragraph, there's a sentence that says, but even at this level of creation, the space of which we speak is not quite what you are perceived in your mind as you think of that which contains the planets whirling around your sun. Rather, it's more like a mathematical concept. It was the idea of space in which the extension occurred. I love this, and the reason I do is it takes me back when I was studying with a master who used to say when he inquired in terms of what is God, the answer came back space. And I just find that fascinating because whether you're looking at all the stars in heaven or even on within the body, within a cell, the thing that is common is there's always space. Always space is everywhere. And so I think it's kind of cool the way he brings that up. um Jesuit goes on to say, I and the mother father are one. Okay. He talks about, he goes through the process talking about the creation of the soul. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this because there's a lot of reading in here. And it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like studying, right? Um, then he talks about this idea where the creation of the soul, and then the next section is separation is birth, and starts talking about this idea of separation, and compares it to, oh, I want to back up for a minute and talk about the creation of the soul, where he talks about the analogy of the drop of milk, right? Where he talks about the commercial where you see the milk being poured into a glass, and then you see that drop and how it looks like it's separate, but in truth, it's really not. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to skip all the way into um, with a section that's called the creation of the physical universe. And this is where it starts, for me, this is where it really starts to get ramped up. And it says in this section, the paragraph that starts off was, it says, and this condensation continues, what you have been told to call life begins. Conditions are set up, emerging from what? Pure chance? Hardly. It emerges out of the pure potentiality, the power, and the perfect intelligence to create. Although now the creativity is expressing itself more and more out of fear, not out of pure joy. It is like taking a note of a flute and muffling it slightly so that it has a different quality, yet it is still pure energy. For what can fear be but energy, just as love is energy, compassion is energy, and Sadness is energy. Anger is energy. Do you see? Fear is just energy and nothing more. In itself, it is perfectly neutral, which is really incredible to think about fear being completely neutral. For all events are neutral, and fear being merely a dance or a play of energy itself must be an entirely neutral event until something arises to perceive and experience it differently. And what is that? And here we go, the birth of egoic consciousness. So the next section starts to get into this idea of the ego. Fear has taken its final form is the section. And it says, there can be no further condensation of energy that has become fear, for egoic consciousness is fearful consciousness. The ego is fear, yet it is made of pure power, pure potentiality, and unlimited creativity. And so he really starts talking and getting into the egoic mind. So a few paragraphs down, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. And says, so what is egoic consciousness? You all know what it feels like to be absolutely certain that you are separate and alone, that you must rely on your own thinking process, and that no one beyond, not just the boundary of your body or skin, but no one beyond your unique, contracted sense of I, has any connection to you whatsoever, and no one cares. And you lament, I am alone, I am separate. And then in the following paragraph, so fear has taken its final form. Now there is a complete forgetting of God, of the one, of the spirit, even of the soul. And so interesting. And then in the following paragraph, it talks about that is egoic consciousness that says, I am not that one. I am not God. I am not pure spirit. I am not pure soul. I am this thing that sits in a chair now. And do you know something? You're absolutely right. You are that and so much more. The egoic mind is that which creates the separation perception. That is the only tiny, thin slice of the pie. It creates this illusion. And so it talks about the egoic mind, right? Versus what? Versus the Christ mind, right? All right. Further, it's a big section. Further in the section, there's a paragraph that starts off with, if you knew that you were unlimited, the unlimited one, you would never fear the creation of the golden coins again. You would never believe that you must live in lack. But you are still, for the most part, clinging to the belief that you are that small little thought of separation called the egoic mind, still struggling to find God, not recognizing that it is the very power of God's presence from which you create the perception you hold of yourself. So again, who's creating the perception that you are separate from God? You are. So if you're the one that's creating that perception, then guess what? You can change your perception, right? You can change your perception. Your perception was something that was given to you by others. And now that you realize that, then all of a sudden it's like, well, if I have the perception that I'm separate from God, then I could also change that perception. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying, Mike? And my answer is yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And that's exactly what Jesuit is saying, right? So it goes in the following paragraphs, it says, there's a sentence that says, you have created a perception of yourself that includes the experience of being in a body mind, which is separate from all of the bodies, right? And then down in the following paragraph, you are using or having unwittingly been using your physical universe to constantly reflect to you what must be the truth, that you are separate from all of creation. A few paragraphs down, the very energy of seeking is the egoic center, is the egoic energy. For only the ego can seek. Pure spirit can only extend. And so once again, this idea of seeking comes up versus allowing, which we learned about earlier in the book, in the chapter. I think it's interesting that in the previous paragraph, it mentions the Course in Miracles again. right? And it says, well, I've read the Course in Miracles. It didn't seem to work. I'll read it again. Oh, that didn't work. Well, maybe I'll go try this form of meditation. No, that didn't work. Maybe I'll try Buddhism. No, that didn't work. I'll try Christianity. No, that didn't work. I'll try drugs. That'll do it. And it's so this seeking, 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 instead of just being or just allowing, right? Right. A few paragraphs down from there, the beautiful saying, or just an affirmation, I'm not just this body mind, I am the one pure, unbounded, and undefiled. I am in communication with every rock and with every tree and with every time frame that has ever been. I love that, right? The next section is called The End of All Seeking, choosing to live as though you are not the ego. Powerful, powerful, powerful section. Only love is real. You are not the body. I and my mother, father are one. I am awake and walk this planet as Christ. I choose love over fear. Just below that, you must decide to live as though you are not the ego, right? I love that. I love that. There's a statement that's made a few paragraphs down that says, God became increasingly aware of your God self, God diving into God, God discovering God. What a delightful, delightful play. I love that, right? There's a really beautiful thing. I'm not going to read it all. And it starts off, the paragraph starts off with, you've been playing a game of hide and seek. You are the one with your eyes closed, leaning against the trunk of a tree. And then it starts off where this beautiful, I have almost framed this and hung it up on the wall, but I've done a very good job of hiding. But you know, I think it would be a great delight to be found. Find me, dear mother, father. Touch me with your grace, because I am you. I will decide to receive it. In this moment, I choose now to remember that I am the one who was bought, who was both sought and found. I am the one who has remained perfectly unchanged forever. I am the one who has perceived myself as having changed, as having sinned, as having separated myself. I choose now, however, to join two parts of myself together. I will be a body, mind upon this planet, dancing, singing, playing, and creating the good, the holy, and the beautiful. But I will now open that part of my mind that can think in unlimited ways, that will dare to dream of the impossible dream. I am the one who lets God live in me now. I and my father, mother are one. I am the drop of milk again, settling into the fullness of the glass in which my creator dwells as milk. When I walk with this body upon the earth, I feel the midst of the fog upon my skin, and I will say within myself, ah, yes, it is very good. For I am the one with the power to create this body, to create the mist of the fog itself. And the mist of the fog around me is my mother, father's presence, in which my soul reclines. The world is no longer a burden. This world of space and time is no longer something from which I must escape. Not even sickness or disease is a limitation for me. For wherever I am the presence of love. And this moment I bring forth love and bless the world I see. How beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. And in this, God remembers God. I just think that is so beautiful. So lots of stuff to chew on, a really long chapter, but really, really, really beautiful. And so I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we'll be on to lesson 17, the journey of the soul. God bless and have a great day.